Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co-hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
Not easy. I mean, empathy doesn't come easy to everyone. Personally, for me, it is a natural default mode that I have on whenever I meet someone. What I've found a bit challenging and I'm trying to balance is to balance empathy. Like, I can feel the most for someone's story, someone's struggle, and completely hyperfixate on it or let it affect the better half of my day or my own plans. But there's a way to empathize and yet be mindful about it enough to protect yourself.
Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters Podcast, Season 3, Episode 3. As we maneuvered our way through 70 episodes of our podcast, we have also maneuvered through almost 3 years of classes. And classes revolving around, yes, careers, and yes, resumes, and cover letters, and LinkedIn, networking, and all of those things. But truly, at the heart of all of this is a class that Tiffany and I get to do that allows people to get to know themselves better. In our first class for MBA students, we navigate through things like our core values, our strengths, why our strengths are so important, what is our emotional intelligence, how we manage our energy, our time, how we manage ourselves. And today we get to welcome our returning guest, Priyanka, that has been very excited to come back onto our podcast for the second time and talk about that course and getting to know herself. And actually, we're going to revolve around the kind of the class that we do and how important it is for the individual in the first year of their MBA program to learn more about themselves and the journey of discovery that they have been on. So, Priyanka, thank you so much for joining us. And you were the first guest of 2020 of the class of 2026, and so you get to come back and as now a second year student. So thanks for joining us, and we'll ask you to just remind everybody about your story behind embarking on this MBA journey.
Absolutely. It's so cool to be back. I never thought I'll ever get to do that, but here I am, Priyanka, currently in my second year of the MBA program as an international student, all the way from Kuwait, originally from India. MBA journey, you ask, right? So initially, it was all about me spending some good time in the oil and gas industry and being like, I think I've reached a saturation level. I might need to shift things up. I'm getting too comfortable. I want to get in there and try to jump out and think of what's next, so that I get to learn some more. And then Canada sprung up as a great opportunity, and MBA seemed pretty practical because I would get to explore other industries if that was an option, which back then, we'll talk about it more, back then it was not. My goal was just learn, understand anything. So yeah, that's what made me get admission into the UFA, and then thankfully that worked out, and now it's been a year since I've been here.
Crazy, hey? It's been a year. And I love that one of your signals to, gee, what should I do next? Or, gee, should I do an MBA was I was feeling too comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, how often does that signal that we need to make some drastic change, move halfway around the world, tackle a graduate degree? I really appreciate that was like a conscious thought of I'm just too comfy.
Thank you. It was pretty uncomfortable thinking that, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this for the next how many ever years of professional life. I need to switch it up.
Cool. I think that propensity for discomfort or looking for it or being aware that being too comfortable is just not a great thing. It had to have helped you, I would think. It for sure in your first year, yeah, but we're here to talk about the experience in Biz 501, this class that we teach. And if you let it, it can be uncomfortable, because it's all about understanding self and growing. And so before we get into any of the specific topics, I would love an overview. What stands out to you as perhaps the most memorable topic or just highlighted experience of Biz 501 for you?
I actually have it here. My strengths and values. This is from when you guys had given us the worksheets last year to kind of work through and spend some time on. I really appreciated knowing my value because I always thought that okay, how I make friendships, for example, is by asking questions and having like meaningful conversations, the real stuff beyond the superficial weather talk, right? But I didn't know that there was a name for it, creativity. And turns out that's one of my top values that I don't would always count as my top five. So getting to learn about myself at my core through these structured facilitations by the both of you really helped me kind of understand myself better and eventually use it as a brand as a for my elevator pitches and for my self introductions, you know.
Can you tell us a little bit more specifically? Give us a tactical example of how, okay, I have these words for my values, these things that are really important to me, these things that I base decisions on. How have those now shown up for you in this last year, now that you kind of have words for them?
I feel so much more self aware. Um, Leaving the whole MBA aspect of it aside, I feel like it's so important. I'm almost 30, and as I grow older, I understand so much about myself, learn a bit every single year. Like, I would not be the same person as I was who came to Canada for the first time. And beyond the degree itself, I feel like it really helped me empathize with myself better, and it has really helped me network, the famous word, because I realized that I'm good at holding conversations one on one, and then I actively listen and I ask questions and I contribute accordingly, and that has felt great. It has really boosted my confidence, and yeah, all in all, it just makes me feel good about myself. That okay, this is who I am, and now there's a technical aspect to it. Like it's one of my values.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's so cool that you can kind of wrap that into the thought of who you are. I feel very lucky. I've been able to go to many different places and talk about brand, and we talk about values, and the question I ask is usually like, what are your values? And people have a really hard time answering those things. And so it's really cool that you now start to see these things, but then you made a really interesting comment. It was about halfway through. It becomes a part of who I am and my brand. And I think that's very, very important to understand. It's almost like the foundation of who we are, right? Those core values.
Yeah.
Moving on to strengths. So, you knew you were probably good at things when you come from Kuwait, come from the oil and gas space, and you probably had an idea of things you were pretty good at. But is there a difference between how you see or saw your strengths versus how you see them now? What does that look like for you?
I think I'll lean towards the soft skills that I genuinely developed since coming here. Back at my old workplace in Kuwait, things were more technical and professional. Like the focus was on, having more knowledge on the industry, and people would not go beyond just forming emails and communicating through emails. Coming here, I realized like soft skills are the core of anything. Building an impact, building an impression, building relationships, right? The way your body language is, the way you show up to classes, the way you dress up, the way you interact with people, the eye contact, the way you talk and, pronunciate despite the accent difference and all that. Building confidence through that. I might have strayed from the original question, but yeah, I realized that. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's good. I think that, the world of work is very different around the world, right? And I think when we come from a place that puts such a heavy emphasis on technical to coming to a place that puts a heavy emphasis on the soft skills or the human skills, Tiffany and I like to talk about them around like what skills make you human, right? Yeah. And I think that, when it came to the strengths assessment itself, like, do you remember any of them? Were any that like really stood out to you that you were that you were really proud of? Any that stood out to you?
So communication ended up being one of my strengths, and that made me feel pretty like self-validated I'd like to say, because I'm like, okay, it makes sense, and I can always improve upon it, knowing that this stands out, this comes up, and then to be able to take that and work on it every day, be it formally or through being more aware of when I'm talking to friends, for example, or family.
Yeah.
That has been pretty enlightening.
That's cool. Well, and when we look at the world of Gallup and Clifton's strengths, communication really signifies it's one of the influential buckets that it kind of fits in, and you can influence by the way that you talk, and guess what? That's one of the people or human skills that you can definitely look at, right? And I also find that communication really sparks people that are great storytellers, and so I know that you and I, as we've worked together for the last year, we've had lots of stories to tell back and forth, and definitely help you work on those human skills. So which is really cool. The last follow-up I have around strengths, and then I'll pass it off to Tiffany to talk about unspoken brand. But in the strengths, how do you think that knowing your strengths has helped you with like project work and things like that in your MBA so far?
It has helped me take more initiative. I feel confident about taking initiative. The big old imposter syndrome always exists. I can always do better. Someone is always better than me. I'm not here to compete. I'm here to improve myself, right? So with communication, it had over the past year, net impact, for example, I was confident enough to be like, yeah, I'm fine leading if that's okay. I just knowing my strength formally through the assessments helped me develop upon it throughout my learning journey at the MBA, including taking more initiatives. That's the most significant thing that I've seen change in myself as compared to who I was before came to Canada.
I'd like to throw a question that I know we didn't prepare you for, but I want to tie it into strengths. And you and I have an interesting intersection, or we did last year, and that you and I both gave improv a try. So improv is something that most people kind of get the willies when they think about it, going on stage and not knowing at all what you're going to have to do. And you jumped in with like your entire body, not just a toe, not just one, like you like launched yourself into the deep end of improv just because I said it might be fun and like maybe come give it a try. Like, Lordy. Anyway, I am curious. Through all that you've learned about yourself, the strengths that you just talked about, what supported you to try something that most people would have steered far away from?
It genuinely started with me continuously pushing myself to be uncomfortable. Back when you reached out to me and you were like, improv, I hadn't even given it too much of a research thought, because I know for a fact that if I went online and watched some videos or like researched upon it more, I'd probably start overthinking. There was a lot of spontaneity that was involved in me being like, let's do it, I was probably caffeinated all the time, specifically when you probably asked me. Black coffee is still my brand, by the way. But it was just spontaneity and the confidence that I was growing throughout, doing my best in courses which I didn't appreciate, but at the same time developing skills through discussions in the classroom and all that. So yeah, I guess spontaneity, and I really wanted to get uncomfortable, and I was like, what? Nothing worse as getting a bad grade. That's the worst that could happen. Nothing.
I'm going to I know Tiffany is going to ask you the next question, but Priyanka, let me enlighten you into something called the zone of proximal development, which means the ability to stretch out of our comfort zones. If you happen to watch this podcast on a somewhat regular basis, Tiffany and Majid educated us on that. And I just had to share that I learned something about stepping out of our comfort zone. And Tiffany and Majid definitely talked to me about that. But I wanted to share that I actually retained something from that.
You sure did. And you used it appropriately, Paul. That was great. I want to tie in.
Go back and rewatch. Yeah.
You should. It's hilarious. The look on Paul's face will explain why I just cracked up. I want to tie in what you just said, though, to unspoken brand. So part of our activity, and I don't want to spoiler it too much for those just coming up because we're about to do this with the new class, but there's an opportunity for other people to reflect back to you the brand that they see without you saying anything. And you linked this, you talked about body language before and just understanding your skill set. And then I would offer that you brought in your own brand to improv when you stood on that stage and you were yourself. Like, there's a brand that follows you. So tell us about what you became, what you either learned or came to understand about your unspoken brand. This isn't communication of words. Like, what do people know about you, just from you?
So I think the thing that people would probably say about me when I'm not in the room, because I think that's what unspoken brands are about, would probably be that I'm game to try new things. That's one thing. And I'm also, past lately, I've also been known to be clear about my boundaries and the things that I'm okay trying versus the things that are a no-no for me. And there's a lot of mutual respect surrounding it because that's an expectation that I've established. Another, I think a more definite unspoken brand about me is the fact that I will be asking questions. It can start off as a normal conversation, but I always enjoy asking questions. And most of the times I've surprisingly witnessed that people appreciate being asked questions and they actually take their time to respond, because I have felt that too. If we're having a conversation and you've asked me something that makes me think, I'll really appreciate it. That's probably the first time in the whole week that I've been asked about something, and it shows that you care about me or you've thought about me.
Yeah.
So these have been
That's cool.
pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, Priyanka, you make such a valid point around like when I'm not in the room, right? I think it's Jeff Bezos talked about. He has this quote around your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, and I think all of those things are very much applicable to who you are. I think very kind, so curiosity, ask questions, coffee lover, coffee connoisseur,
Yes.
someone that is willing to say yes to things that may be out of other people's comfort zones. I believe you were the only student to take Tiffany up on her, hey, want to do something crazy with me? So so I think that's really wonderful. And then, as we maneuvered through the semester, we talked about emotional intelligence. And this is where people that have the real human skills, that this is where they can really flourish. And where you really start to see the big differences is when we start to talk about emotional intelligence. So were there any aha moments for you around any of the components of emotional intelligence, or how you kind of read other people? What do you think?
I was surprised how people can get competitive about EQ as they do about IQs. I was like, listen, everyone has their own path. There's absolutely no need to be like, you have a better emotional intelligence. And that shows there's a lack of it. Anyways, I wasn't shading. I think I think empathy is something that I was a bit introspective about. It's not easy. I mean, empathy doesn't come easy to everyone. Personally, for me, it is a natural default mode that I have on whenever I meet someone. What I've found a bit challenging and I'm trying to balance is to balance empathy. Like, I can feel the most for someone's story, someone's struggle, and completely hyperfixate on it or let it affect the better half of my day or my own plans. But there's a way to empathize and yet be mindful about it enough to protect yourself. That's something that, to be honest, I'm still struggling with. I still need to work through it through professional help and my own self-work. But I appreciated understanding empathy a bit better through this emotional intelligence journey that we took in our class.
I want to underline the word that you just said of balance, because that lends so nicely into one of the other topics we talked about, and I want to link it to this empathy piece. But energy management and boundaries, and you've talked about boundaries too. I'm curious, though, the impact on your energy that being so empathetic has. How has the empathy played on your energy?
Honestly, your energy bucket is the most challenging thing any humankind could ever do. Like, to this day, I haven't figured out how much energy. It differs every single day. every single day my bucket is a different size of energy and attention. Um, I don't want to say perfectionism, but perfectionism definitely wants you to allot equal packets of energy to everything that you do, but it's not. I've realized it's not practical, and it's such a learning learning journey, I would say. Um, Energy is different. Different things require different energy and prioritizing, and I hope like one day I get to come back here and give you a clearer answer, but clearly it's something that is so dynamic and like changes so often for me as well. Um, Part of me wants to take up so many things because it helps me push myself out and learn so much and grow wiser as a person. Another part of me is like, I don't have the energy for that. I'm drained, I'm burnt out, right? So, yeah, definitely.
I remember having a conversation with you before you went away this summer because you went back home, I believe, and spent some time at. What is it that you did this summer that put energy back in your bucket?
First of all, like not having to go to classes made so much of a difference. So spring, initially I was so ambitious about spring. I was like, why do we only get to do 2 courses? I'm going to do 4 and finish it off, have like a light or whatever. But then those 2 extensive weeks took the energy out of the rest of the 3 weeks. And I was like, you know what? It makes sense. Rules are made by smart people. Makes sense, makes sense. And and then I got to go back home for 2 whole months, meet my family and partner and everything. And not going to classes, that was one great activity that gave me so much of time. It was pretty hot, above 50 degrees, but that didn't stop me from pushing myself to start working out, which genuinely helped me make my energy packet work. Kind of. I was surprised to find out that I actually felt better on days I worked out, which prior to this, Priyanka would be like, there's already so much to do, right? I'm already so emotionally exhausted. How can I find, why am I adding more stress to my life by like giving an hour to physically exhausting myself as well? I'm already so tired emotionally, but these holidays gave me such a good segue into being like, yes, activity, working out is really good.
So important, right? We had a student. They were there. They were at our orientation or like a networking event, and we had a little. They could put sticky notes up on the wall saying like, "What kind of pieces of advice would you have for MBA students?" And I was waiting for you and Tiffany to just kind of finish your conversation on time and energy management, because this student wrote on one of the sticky notes, "Learn how to manage your energy, not your time." And
Wow,
it's
yeah.
such a powerful way to look at managing through an MBA program, because we could take it back to work-life balance or work-life harmony, which we've heard from a previous guest of ours. But I think at the end of the day, it's really important to understand how to manage your energy, and it sounds like you're just kind of working your way through. And I think that's a constant evolutionary process for us, no matter where we are in our lives, right? Tiffany's about to go and teach 2 classes to leaders, and I'm sure she's got to manage her energy. I have 2 kids, and I have zero energy all the time because they're exhausting, and you just learn how to manage your energy and manage that time that you have that kind of complements that energy, which I think
Yeah.
is really cool. Last kind of question that we have before Tiffany takes you off into the lightning round. But if you hadn't experienced Biz 501, what do you think would have been missing for you in your MBA journey? So if Biz 501 didn't exist and it wasn't there, what would be missing?
I think my experience would be pretty transactional for all the courses. I would care about the attendance, the assignments, the deliverables, the grades. Biz 501 really allowed us to relax for those 2 to 3 hours once a week, um, come there to learn about ourselves, self-awareify ourselves, if I may. It helped me get in touch with myself better and understand that whatever you've come from, things work different here in this new country, in this new industry, new chapter. Adapt. Like, take your time. You have professionals who are there to help you as students. Learn and absorb. and just keep going through that.
It truly was a joy to have you in class. It was very easy to tell in every single class that you were like right there with Paul and I. It didn't hurt that you were always in the front of the class because that's your favorite place to sit. But
That was a strategy.
it was. It's always great as a facilitator to have somebody kind of looking back at you that you know is just spot all in. So yeah,
Thank you.
thanks
That
for
means
that.
a lot. It was great. Like I've enjoyed. It's been the highlight of my MBA journey to spend time with the both of you every week.
Glad to hear. You ready for a lightning round?
Yes, let's do this.
All right, you're a pro at this now. Three quick questions, 3 gut answers. All right, what part of your career story has given you the biggest boost?
Wow, lightning round. I'm paused. You know what? I'm gonna career story. So improv wouldn't count, right? All right.
Yeah, improv I think would count. So you go with your gut. Just say whatever your gut told you.
That's fair enough. You know what? Trying improv for the first time, getting on stage in front of people I've never met who have done this for years and years and years, and just them laughing at what I'm putting out spontaneously, that was empowering. That made me feel great.
What do you wish you'd learned sooner?
that I do not want to be a perfectionist, and that I will be slow at times, and it's okay. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourselves. You're already doing pretty great, and it just is going to get better. Just keep your work ethics and be kinder and slow with yourself.
And service, of course, is so important to Paul and I. So super curious to hear how service is going to show up for you this week.
Awesome. So last year I was a student consultant with the Net Impact. This year, me and some of my close friends are mentoring for the upcoming batch. I'm really excited to have a conversation with them, tell them what I went through last year, and ultimately it's their own journey, but it'll be great to talk to them and absorb their enthusiasm and just guide them wherever we can.
Amazing. I love how you're able to make ripples so quickly, to give back so quickly. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Paul, a second round, and she's your coachee, so I can only
goodness.
imagine what question you have.
Last time I said, oh God. This time I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's ready. She's ready. Priyanka, the one thing I think that is interesting, I'd love to hear from you about what it has been like to have a career coach. To kind of sit with and talk with, and someone that is willing to give you the time and space you need. What has that been like in the last year?
Up until not having a career coach, I had to rely on myself for every single thing, which, don't get me wrong, I still do. Having a career coach, like sitting with Paul, has made me be relieved about relying on someone with an intense experience bucket of knowledge. And I know for a fact that I can come to you with any questions about what do I do from here in terms of my career. And you have great answers, and it's really comforting to be able to rely on you. And it has always led on to also feeling very safe emotionally by our connection and conversation. I think it's such a good... I share classes with undergrads in my second year, and they're always surprised whenever they hear about like us international students having assigned career coaches who we can get to meet every 2 to 3 weeks if you want to. It's just so reassuring, and it's such a great value addition to this already difficult and kind of confusing MBA journey. Especially, I mean, I don't want to speak for all international students, but I'm new to this. I'm afraid, I'm curious, but I have doubts. And you are such a great beacon of clarity and professional light. And you're also this amazing person. It's so important to be a good listener. I've had moments with both Tiffany and Paul where I've really appreciated them being such great listeners. And I could talk about this for hours.
Thanks.
I think you should, because it'll just mean Paul will get redder and redder and redder. It's his favorite topic.
Yeah,
goodness,
we ask about reflection, we ask about like these classes, but I think the coaching complements all of the classes, right? So I think it's important to know it's just not us standing in front of people and lecturing. It's about like reflection and having somebody to talk to about some of those things, which I think is great.
It is. It is.
Oh, Priyanka, we had, you know what? There's almost nobody we probably would have rather had as a repeat guest than you. We just adore you truly through our classes, through interactions with you, through coaching with you with Paul. You and I have had our own interactions. You are just simply a joy. And for many, many reasons, one of them for sure, for the amount that we've seen you lean into Biz 501. If you talk about just an example of what happens when you do that, you instantly come to mind. Not only that, you're someone who, you're in your second year, you're loaded down, taking more courses, and you are someone who is still, how do I help the first year? How do I coach and mentor? How do I pass this on? And I haven't even graduated yet. So how do I do this even with a heavy load? That you talk about unspoken brand. You talk about just understanding self. That is who we know you to be. And so thank you for being that for yourself, but also for others around you.
This is like the best. This is amazing. I want to tattoo this segment of the podcast.
There's a new one. Yes, Career Boosters tattoos, Paul. That's the next one.
I feel great listening to that. Thank you so much. You both are the sweetest. Oh,
Well, thank you, Priyanka. And we wish you all the very best in your second year.
thank you. Thank you. We'll keep in touch, of course.
Absolutely.
You never know. Third edition? You never
Sure.
know.
Excellent. We'll pencil you in.
Wonderful. Thank
All
you.
right. See ya.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
All right, key takeaways. There was something hidden in what she said, because I think almost everything she said is a lovely key takeaway, but I wanted to surface, she said a sentence around empathy isn't easy for everyone. And I would love to normalize that for a moment. And I do some of this work with leaders because I think we all know that empathy is part of emotional intelligence, which means we are socialized to think that if I'm not empathetic, that I'm a horrible human. But the reality is that empathy actually isn't easy for every person. And there are some kind of psychological I'm not going to speak about it because I don't know enough about it, but just like deficiencies in empathy. However, it's a skill set. You can work on it, and you can look at it as simply as perspective taking. And I've watched rooms of leaders when we talk about and try to normalize the fact that empathy isn't easy for everyone. You watch some leaders go, oh, okay, it's not just me. So if that's you, and if empathy is a bit of a struggle that you've only ever maybe admitted to yourself, just know that there's actually a lot of people that struggle with it, and that's okay, and it's a skill set, so it can be worked on. I appreciated her surfacing that.
Cool. And I think for me, I want to talk a little bit about comparison, because I think comparison is something that you even heard her talk about it with emotional intelligence. Students were comparing their scores and everything like that. And, I've said many times that I believe that quote around comparison is the thief of joy. But Priyanka and I have had some really great conversations. And one quote that has come up for through our meetings in the last little bit was one that I had found, and I'd heard it on another podcast. And the quote goes, it's Charles Cooley, I am not what I think I am, and I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. And I think that's really interesting. It's because we have the perception and thoughts of other people and what are they thinking of me right now and things like that. And at the end of the day, how can we be comfortable with who we are? And Priyanka really is trying to live in I'm trying to be very comfortable with what my brand is and who I am. And that to me is the most important thing. And I just say good on you. That's really, to me, that the takeaway of her introspection just as a whole for me today was a big one.
And that's the first time I've heard that quote, so I'm going to noodle that one. That's a really good one. All right, next week is a topic that on the surface seems like it only applies to perhaps a subset of students, but we want to offer, in fact, applies to absolutely everyone and not just MBA students. So we're going to chat about case competitions, and if that word just had you saying, ooh, not for me, I would encourage you to challenge that and to stick around because I think we will prove that it is, in fact, for you. So see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.